And I heard another voice from heaven, saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached into heaven, and Elohim hath remembered her plagues.
My family came. Came or went to Oklahoma, and some splintered off into Texas from the Trail of Tears. And that's what I know about my family here. The other part of, I'm a half-breed, so the other part of my family comes from overseas, as do probably all of us. Okay, so we are still family, and what we're doing together takes a great deal of courage. It takes a great deal of stamina, strength, and reaching and seeking. And I have met so many beautiful people in this walk or journey or whatever you'd like to call it, and have learned so much through the years. And when it comes to status correction, we have a lot that we have to consider. And, for example, all of the things that we are considered by these entities or creatures or people, de facto, once again, whatever you'd like to call them, we have got to set the record straight on who we are. That takes a great deal of searching for answers, because you have to look within as well as without. But to look without and to find different steps that you can take, many of us already know that authenticating the birth certificate seems to be very, very important. I've done that. I've done that on the state level. I've done it on the federal level. I've done it now on the land in Georgia. And I feel real good about that one, too. So that's technically 4 seals on the authenticated birth certificates. I think these efforts that we make, these steps that we take, are actually more valuable than what we really know so far. But in addition to doing the authenticated birth certificate, we know that the DS-11 passport has value, great value. And that's another step that needs to be taken. That is one that I see you're clearly making a line in the sand from being a U.S. citizen to being the living being, which really is the difference. Because, of course, we know that the U.S., the United States of America, or United States is a corporation, and we're not part of that. And so I hope that we can go through a great deal of information on these calls and share. And I really look forward to meeting more people who are seeking these things out and who have joined in on standing up for your rights and learning what those are and learning how to do that. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and yield and pass it over to our moderator, Marshall Schubert.
Yeah, I'm on.
All right. I actually had a question for you, if you don't mind. Have you listened to the Exit the Matrix series that Justice Bruce Doucette did? And they talked about 7 seals on there. What do you know about the 7 seals?
Thank you. Yes, as a matter of fact, I was doing those studies with everyone else, or with a lot of people, and it was wonderful. The 7 seals, we were taught, a few of my study mates, we were talking about that the other day, and we're going to track those down. But what we know so far, what we know so far, and what I've heard, is that when you get your birth certificate or record of live birth, it comes with a seal. So that's your first seal. When you send it off to the state, then to get authenticated, that's your second seal. And then when you send it off on the federal level, that's your third seal. And I just got mine back from Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, with the 1776 seal. And that seems to be a pretty big deal. Okay, I really debated about that one before I sent it off because I thought, well, am I just distracting myself, or does this have value? And something prompted me to go ahead and do that and record it first on the land in Georgia and then send it off to Atlanta to the Secretary of State for the 1776 seal. So that would leave 3 more seals. One of those seals would be Israel. I don't know anything about that yet. And then there's 2 more, and there's a couple of people looking into that right now. But certainly anybody that knows anything, please come forward and share. Thank you.
If I may, this is Pamela, Kevin's wife. We've got birth certificates ready to authenticate. I guess the $1 million question is making sure they go to the right place. And do we need to, obviously you don't just send them and they just know what to do. Do we have to put a cover letter? And do we have to ask anything very specific or send it to a specific department there to make sure there isn't a problem?
Are you talking about the land court in Georgia, or?
I'm talking about, we've got our birth certificates, we've got our certificates of live birth, the long form, to send in. And the big question for me is to the Secretary of State in your state. And then the other one would be sent to the Secretary of State in the District of Columbia, correct? But I wanted to know, do we put a cover letter with that saying, please authenticate these and return them to? And do we have to send it to a particular department at the Secretary of State's office in order to send them back going, you didn't send them to the right place? So do we put attention to a certain?
Just the authentication departments. Okay, now here's been my experience in sending it to the state level in the state of nativity where you were born. And when you send it to the Secretary of State there, yes, you do send a cover letter, but actually you really don't because they have their own form. So you go on to the state's website and find their authentication process for the birth certificate, and you fill it out and you choose a non-Hague country, okay? And you want to make sure that I chose Jamaica, okay? So you can choose. There's several.
Was non-Hague or not, which is probably a good idea right now because Taiwan is on one of the hot spots to blow up soon places, one of the 3, and they might not let you go to Taiwan these days.
Right. Nonetheless, it really is not so much their concern as far as I'm concerned. But I could be wrong there. I don't know. But the main thing is choose a non-Hague country, and they do change. So I could tell you, Jamaica, but Jamaica may have changed by now. So in which case, you are grandfathered. Okay, so you're grandfathered. However, you do that on the state level, and you do that on the federal level. You choose your non-Hague country, okay? And then if you choose to go ahead and send it to Georgia, which I did for the Great Seal, 1776, they don't require one. Now, in reading multiple things, when you send it to Georgia, the way that I comprehend it is now you are dealing with the de jure. And the reason for recording the authenticated one on the state and federal level, okay, in one place in Georgia first, is that you're recording your property, basically, on the land. Okay, you're weird. You're recording that on the land that you're authenticated and you're alive. Okay, you're a live being. You really are dealing with the Cestui Que Vie Act of 1666 in this case, because the courts consider us all dead and lost at sea. Okay, that's because of the 1666 Cestui Que Vie Act. Mm-hmm. And that's still on the record. Okay, that's still the way that works. So you are considered dead and incompetent and multiple things. So an enemy of the state, an enemy combatant, illiterate, degenerate, monster. So when you step into the courts, into their courts, okay, they're fixed. There's nothing you can do in them because they're fixed. They're controlled by the bar attorneys, who are the judges and all the attorneys involved, which there's always a slew of them, okay, and then there's the little bottom feeders that feed off of them and do their bidding for them, do the unclean hands work, so forth and so on. So, you're going through the study and comprehending why you're considered dead or why you're considered lost at sea or why you're considered an enemy combatant, enemy of the state, etc., is a good study, and it's good for your own comprehension, as well as being able to defend yourself. Because when you stand up against these tyrants, they start shaking, and when they start shaking, they start doing things, and they start pulling rabbits out of their hats. They're big on illusion. And you have got to be able to stand your ground. And whether or not I'm there, I have no clue. I'm going through 2 foreclosures right now. Today I sent out 26 courtesy notices, all done correctly, all done with everything good. I'm going to post those on our public site somewhere because that's one phase of what I'm doing. But see, when you go through these studies, you begin to comprehend that it's all done in fraud. Everything is done in fraud. And so that makes everything null and void, for one. But in addition to that, many actions have been taken by many forces out there, if you want to call them forces. For example, the OPPT, all banks and corporations were foreclosed. And that happened December 25th of 2012. And I've seen documentation where someone who was going through a foreclosure sent that information into the bank, I think it was Chase Bank, and they sent an apology letter back because they can be liable for damages. If they continue their paper terrorism on you or actions against you. However, I'm a believer. Not everybody would agree with me on this, but I am a believer that your status correction needs to be done. And that includes your passport. That includes sending a letter off to the Treasury, too, and making them your fiduciary. And the IRS, too. You need to deal with them because they are the accountants. And they need to settle all the accounts that are under your legal name, which was hijacked at birth. And we all know that. We all know. If you don't know, you should know by now. Yes, you were robbed from the cradle on that legal entity, that fictional character, and, that's the transmitting utility, commercial instrument that is used to create wealth off of human energy, and it's done through fraud. So, get your ducks in a row and protect yourself. Make sure that you've got, in my case, I did UCC filings, and I feel real good about my UCC filings because I know that I am the creditor. I know that I control the debtor, the transmitting utility, and I've taken control over that instrument so that if someone does move against me, it's going to cost. And I only take lawful currency. I don't take fiat currency because I'm not going to play in those arenas of fraud that kill the people, destroy, so forth and so on. That, to me, is taking a stand. And, it's a pretty cut and dry thing. So with that, I yield. And with any luck, we might have Maria Janet on the phone with us. tonight.
I'm coming.
Oh, nice. Hi, Maria Janet.
I'm trying to get my earpiece to connect in here.
All right. Does anybody have any questions at this point while MJ is getting settled?
I have to stay on speaker, guys. I can't do anything about it.
No problem.
All right. So, this is the first time I've been on this call. What are we doing with it?
Well, this is the first call, MJ. You know, a lot of us are going through status correction and, you know, comprehending how contracts work or consent itself works. So those are some of the notes that I made. And so status correction, I think, is the biggest topic on the table here.
This is Kevin on Glenwood. This call actually was generated from the Marshall's chat on the Signal app. We all were listening and heard you talk about the passport, and all got interested in that and started studying that. And this conference call has come about because of that. I yield.
Actually, if I may here, I think that might have been Mary that you were referring to, who was on a call the other night.
It may have been.
She was telling about what happened when she got her passport, the correct one. So it was done through the passport.
If I may, has she successfully gotten the DND passport?
She did she turned her license in, and she got the 5-star card, and that she found out through other means that was considered an international driver's license, which means that, yes, you don't need, you know, your license or any of that, because now you have cut that jurisdiction. So that's what I got from her.
And did it have a DND on it? Do not detain?
Well, we are not sure yet. I planned on bringing her in on maybe the next call so that she could give us the information again, and then maybe update us on anything new that she's learned. So I'm not completely sure. She did say that she now had the ability to negotiate with her insurance carrier, so they couldn't just slam rates down her throat, or I'm not sure. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think the indemnity bond takes care of that, so you don't need insurance. You know, I think if you've done your UCC filings and you've sent your indemnity bond into the Treasury, then I think that, you know, should you move about and accidentally harm someone, that should be covered by your indemnity bond.
Okay, but we did the indemnity bonds years ago. Are they done different now?
I don't know. I did mine along with an entire packet, which included the secured party creditor. It included the holder in due course, the indemnity bond, the lien, the property list. You know, there were about 39 pages of what I did when I did my
we did that
UCC
years
filing.
and years ago.
You did all of those yourself years and years ago? I think did you ever stop to enforce any of it?
Nope, not yet.
Okay. I think that's
Never really
where the
had
key
thoroughly
is.
Explained on that avenue.
You know, I am not, you know, certain on this because I haven't done any payments or anything like that yet. But once you've done the indemnity bond and you've also sent your birth certificate in to the Treasury, okay, which you look at Anna Von Wright's, you know, she says take the authenticated birth certificate and send it in, right, with your accepted by DRY and paid to the order of, you know, et cetera. she gives instructions on that. However, I think that the record of live birth is just as valid, I guess if you want to call it that, as an authenticated birth certificate, because we're talking about two different things here. However, they do carry the same record of live birth number on them, which is the original transmitting utility. And then you have to turn to the Social Security card, and that red number that appears with a letter in front of it, which tells which 12 Federal Reserve banks you were assigned to when you were born, or when your Social Security card was given. And that's a whole nother account, okay, or trust or whatever. And it also puts you in the jurisdiction of, of the de facto, unless you take control over it, I think. So, when you send your letter into the Treasury, you are looking to clear all of your accounts. And that really is what you're doing by law, the way that it was meant to be and the way that the forefathers actually did intend it for our protection in a state of an emergency or what have you. So, the laws are there, the information is there, and anybody that does the deep study on it can begin to comprehend. We were never meant to live under threat. We really weren't. If you wonder where all the lying and the cheating and the stealing comes from, well, that comes from people being ripped off and being abused. So there has to be a curve here to get people to the abundance that it was intended. There has to be a curve here of getting people into that where they don't feel like they have to lie, cheat, or steal. But that's just my take. Okay, so I yield.
If I may.
So what all have you done? Do you know? Please do. MJ, the floor is yours. I'm sorry. The DS-11, have you done that or?
No, I have not done it yet. What I have done is set a record in the land court and put all of my filings, authenticated birth certificate, anything that I wanted to give notice of went into that filing, and had the land court authenticate it or certify it with special gold seals from Lamar, Georgia. And we have now another county that you can get a second gold seal from, and it's very impressive too. Georgia is the only state that I know of that on its certifications has 3 signatories on it. It identifies the clerk as His Excellency and Commander-in-Chief of the Army, the Navy, and the militia, covering both public and private side of the coin. And every other state that I know, when they do their state authentications, only have one person signing on it, and that's the Secretary of State, where Georgia has 3 signing on it: the Secretary, the Clerk, and another administrative person signing on it. So you have the rule of 3. Now, the documents do not appear to have much enforcement power in them yet, but there again, once a record is set, the record has to be proven that it's not a valid record. So what I'm doing now is going after the owner of the bars, federal and state, the owner of the black robes, the owner of the attorneys, the owner of the banks, the owner of IRS. It's all one entity that we knew about a few years ago, but we didn't know how to contact them or bring forth anything until someone found the registered agent notation in the Delaware corporation laws. For 46 years, every claim I've made has been answered with silence. or some kind of a threat of incarceration or charge or whatever. When we filed the suit against the Corporation Trust Company of 1907, we really started getting the grease. All of these non-registered foreign agents, black robes, came out of the woodwork, made motions to dismiss, and the state that they were working with the most, which was Minnesota, the case was transferred to 3 different counties, 3 different dates, 3 different judges, and there was a U.S. district judge who assigned another U.S. district judge, and everybody in the whole scenario that made an answer on that side of the fence were nothing more than non-registered, courtesy noticed, non-defendant parties. So the Corporation Trust Company or its registered agent who tried to answer through an attorney who was not registered never really gave an answer. So my gal withdrew her claim because we found out we had it in the wrong forum. We had it in the civil case, civil trial case in Minnesota where it belonged in the federal court to get to the court of records. So she's now in the process of refiling in the court of records through the U.S. District Court. And Kevin, you can come in here and help me here because you were telling me this morning that your success has been because you've been able to properly note on the face of the document the jurisdictional statement validating the original Constitution. And that was validated further for me from information that we got from a retired federal black robe that gave us 5 statements as to the true key to their system. We've all gone in from time to time and challenged jurisdiction. We just recently, in the last 6 months to a year, discovered that their documents contain 2 jurisdictions, Dog Latin and proper English. So we learned how to straighten that out with the style manuals, about 3 of them, validating definitions so that the document would have 1 jurisdiction. When you went into court and asked for the court to prove jurisdiction on the record, the black robe would always say, well, I have jurisdiction. Well, excuse me, it's got to be proven on the record in writing, and if there's no court reporter there, it's not going to go on the record. So we still have some courts playing funny business with us on that issue, but it's an appealable issue that would go up to the next court, and I'm sure the lower court would be straightened out. The second issue was that when the corporate United States was formed around the Civil War, when the states walked out and all of that, excuse me, that's wrong, Maria Janet, when the original United States of America was formed, then the corporation came along and had to form itself in a corporation, so they adopted the original Constitution for the United States of America. And everybody over the years has spelled United States of America in various different ways. In reality, it must be spelled lowercase u, lowercase s, uppercase a, in order to meet that original United States of America, because the states were united under one acronym called America. So when they adopted that original Constitution, it's my understanding that the 13th Amendment had been ratified and passed and stuck on to the original Constitution, so that when the corporation came along and adopted that original Constitution, they then adopted the 13th Amendment that said all black-robed foreign agents that are not registered have no force and effect. And if a black robe wants to tell me that that's not true, I have an email just recently in the last month where the United States questioned the authority of the non-registered agent from Russia signing agreements with the United States State Department, and it all coming down from a boil down to the bottom said that that agent didn't have authority, status, standing, or capacity to sign any agreement. So if a black robe thinks that the Foreign Registration Act is not proper, is not valid, and is not needed, well, now we have a 2017 article on how Russia and the United States handled the issue of this foreign agent that was not registered. So I've been looking at procedural ways to communicate my status and position on my documentation. And that's what I've been doing for the last month or so. I yield.
Wonderful. Thank you, MJ. That was a wealth of information. Does anybody have any questions for MJ? I yield.
Kevin, where are you at? Come in and chime in on this. This is MJ. I yield.
Yeah, if I may.
Please.
What's the source of the document talking about the unregistered Russian agent?
It's just an email that I have. I can forward that over to Little Deer.
Okay.
And she can get it out to you guys.
Thanks.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Mary Janet, I did come across the NSEA site through the Sovereign Living on YouTube. And then, to my surprise, I see you there on some documents. I really have been working hard to find that form in Colorado for the deregistering of the vehicle. I cannot find that for nothing. You don't have a form number for that, do you?
I just came across Washington's form number. That's all I can tell you.
And do they have similar form numbers?
But you don't really need to go to their form. You just need to, if you have the private plate through the environmental court, International Environmental Court,
right,
now has a registration for your automobile. When you register it with the Environmental Court International, it will state on there that all other registrations are deregistered.
Okay.
And I don't believe you're going to need anything more than that. Now, if you want, you can take that to your Secretary of State. You can either record it as well. I'm not sure yet what you need to do with it to make a record. For me, it might only be putting an ad in the newspaper for 3 weeks under the registration number granted by the environmental court and having protesters come forward. If no one answers in 21 days, well, it's pretty well set in stone. Send it on over to DOL and let them know to cease and desist all activity on the old account number because the new registration has deregistered that number.
DOL is what?
Department of Licensing.
Licensing. And is that the DMV in the motor vehicle is through the Department of Revenue. Vehicle. Where are these guys?
Yeah. Right.
We're trying to send letters of rescission for all of our adhesion contracts now, and the trick seems to be mailing it, sending it to the right place. seems to be the challenge right now, because we don't want to send it to all the wrong places and then have to do it all again. So we're rescinding directly to wherever we got the documents, trying to, and then going to put them in the clerk and recorder's office in the miscellaneous. We've been reading a lot of Anna's stuff about putting it in the land record office, and best as we can find out, that's in the clerk and recorder's office. You just have to tell them to put those things in there.
I'm not really sure. We did a rescission of signatures that supported our land court filings. And anybody that needed notification of that, I just handed them out like candy to everybody.
That's what I'm doing.
Needed to have notice that all signatures that I did accepting my certificate of assumed name have all been rescinded.
All right. I see there's so many labels. So notices and certificates. We've got the affidavit of names, a certificate of names. Is that equivalent to copywriting your given name that your mom gave you?
Well, I've done the copyright, I've done the trademark, I've done the service mark, I've done the rescission of signatures on everything but. I changed my name through my restoration of equity status in my Lamar record so that now my name is Maria Janet. It does only my DBA carries my surname. According to the Chicago Style Manual, the 1923 Style Manual, the 2008 Style Manual, and a few other resources that are their resources. So I don't know. I'm sending it to the courts that still have some nasty grams out for me, and I'm not sure if they are honoring the rescission of signatures or not, but they got it. And these are the entities that are being named in my claim to the owner here very shortly. So
thank you.
We also have we have some other documentation that we do, and I'm just getting permission to share them with a few people, but I don't have full-blown permission yet to go in and make sure that everybody stops what they're doing and doesn't continue.
If I may?
So, go ahead.
For those of us that are just starting this whole process, what's the first thing that we should be doing? I have my long-form birth certificate in New York. The hospital that I was born in it no longer exists, so all I could get is they call it an apostille birth certificate. It's on bond paper. So that's the first thing that I got. Now what do I do?
Take it to the state secretary and have it authenticated. And then send it
there with a cover letter saying, please authenticate, and send it back?
Yeah, but you want to authenticate it to a non-Hague country. And then you send it on over to the D.C. authentication office and get the corporation to authenticate it. Then you put it aside. That's part of your record that you want to put on your land court record.
All right, and how many copies of that should I have? One or two?
One.
All right.
Well, what I did also was I went to my county and I got a county certified copy of my birth certificate and my children's, and they're exactly identical between the state vital statistics and the county. It's the same form, only on the state one it has the state registrar's seal on it. And on the county form, it has the county doctor's seal on it. So I have both of those authenticated, both state and federal, and in the land court record.
Now, don't be surprised, if I may, when you go after these documents, if you're told there was a flood or a fire or something crazy, be persistent. Try 3 times before you hesitate. Okay, don't let these guys off the hook, because I have been told that my documents were flooded. I've been told they were burned, but I haven't. I have the record of live birth and also the birth certificate. Now, MJ, can you help us on comprehending the difference between the record of live birth and the birth certificate? And is the record of live birth just as valid without authentication as the birth certificate?
Yes. Look at the bottom of a certificate of birth, and you'll see baby born alive. And then you'll have the certificate of live birth. It says certificate of live birth. But down on the other one, even though it says it's not a certificate of live birth, the form itself says baby born alive.
Okay.
So they both say the same thing.
Well, what I did, just, in case anybody wants to, I'm just going to throw it out there. I took the birth certificate, which I had authenticated, and I'm still doing that, getting the seals on it. But when I sent my treasury packet in, I sent just my record of live birth. No authentications, nothing. But I did talk with the deputy, whose signature is at the bottom of the record of live birth, because on mine, and I was born in 1960, so on mine there was something really weird, which was that my first name was in a different font, and you could see where somebody had whited it out before they photocopied it. Okay, so my first name had been whited out, and then something else was put in, which is my first name, as I know it now, and the correct spelling and everything, but it was in a different font than anything else on the record of live birth. So I contacted the vital statistics, or the vital statistics, and asked them what happened. Why was that like that? And the original person that I spoke with got really nervous. And she said, well, I'm looking at the original. That's the way it was sent in. And I said, well, then let's go over the date of when you registered it, because there was maybe 10 days in between the time that it is said that I was born and the time that the document was registered. And she got very, very nervous, but she told me that's the way it was sent in. I'm looking at the original document. Now, I tend to believe that original document is at the Vatican with all of the rest of ours, everybody who has a record of live birth. The wedding signature probably resides at the Vatican. Now, I asked her about 3 times, well, where is the original document with the wet ink signature? That's what was making her nervous. She finally asked me to hold and put me on with the actual deputy. Very helpful, and he let me know that document was just as valid as the original. It was certified or authenticated by him or whatever, and that it was on bond paper and it was a banknote, and I have all of that recorded. It's a beautiful conversation, and I yield.
My long form also, the only copy I have left of it, because we can't get it anymore, they tell us, you can visibly see where my name was whited out and the changed name was written in longhand. Not.
Uh-oh. Did we lose MJ?
Sounds like.
All right. Well, to finish my little leap there, as it turned out, my mother did change the spelling of my first name after the original was created. So he actually kind of told me the story, about what had happened. But I will tell you that there seemed to be a real nervousness around me asking where the document with the wet ink signature was from the doctor. So ask questions. Don't hesitate to ask questions. Don't hesitate to call these guys and ask questions when you see something that doesn't look right. Or if you just have questions in general, I'm a big believer in make contact, and ask your questions, but be persistent, firm, and don't stray. Don't be led astray.
If I may.
Please.
Okay. It was my understanding that all certificates of live birth, or birth certificates, have actually, because of an act in the 1980s, I believe, are actually sent to the Department of Human Resources or Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C. I was reading that in one of the statutes and codes when I was doing some research on that. And I always wondered why that the original certificates were sent to a government office in D.C. Are you thinking that they then go from D.C. to the Vatican?
Personally, I do think they do.
Okay.
I think that the Vatican houses many, many documents that are important. And I've given this a great deal of thought because the Vatican represents the Luciferian and Satanism and, things that I personally do not want to be affiliated with. However, in thinking about the facilities that they have, I guess there's a bit of comfort that comes with knowing that they have humidity control, where they house ancient documents, etc. Now, I don't know for sure that is where our birth certificates or records of live birth with the wedding signatures are housed. But my educated guess would be that would be where it would make the most sense for them to be housed. If for no other reason, for that reason alone, they have facilities there to house those that are humidity controlled and temperature controlled and whatnot. So there's been a great deal of effort put in. I don't like the powers that control that area, but aren't we supposed to correct things? Isn't that what we're doing? And I would like to know that if I request that wedding signature document at some point, that it is my right to have the actual wedding signature document, and they can house a copy. And I do believe that's all of our rights for those kind of things. When it comes to contracts and consent, I think that we have to consider these things. With that, I yield.
If I may.
Please.
This is Pamela. I have a unique situation. Let's see what you think. I'm delighted to say we've moved and bought land, and that land does not have an address. Address equals resident. You get the picture. I'd like to keep it that way. That being said, when I am now filling out documents and they want an address, are they going to accept care of, general, post with the rural route, thing in the box? Are they going to accept do you see a problem with them accepting a general post or general delivery location?
Well,
on forms. I don't know what else to put, and I'm not about ready to get an address. Remote.
Right. That's very good, because when you are doing your status correction, one of those things is learning how your address works or how your addresses work, because, you have to comprehend the difference between a resident and a resident, and basically what puts you into the jurisdiction of the de facto, because they'll use it all. Okay, they'll try and use it all, and they'll use the fact that you live in a geographical area that they control the jurisdiction over. So when you're challenging jurisdiction, learning how to do your address correctly is important. And I cannot say that I am thoroughly learned on this. When I put my address for anything now, I always use my lowercase name with the symbol, and then I do the care of and my address, and then I do non-domestic, my city and state, and then I do the zip code in brackets. The brackets make that zip code invisible. So far, that's really where I am on that. Now, I have delved into a little bit of study on this, where if you are in a situation where you can put a type of fence, a boundary around your mailbox, you probably should. But I'm not personally ready to go in any further than how I automatically do my address, and I instruct others to address me in the same manner if they're going to send something in the mail, because that is to the living being, and since you're not a resident, then you're going to do in care of your address, right. And then you're going to make it even clearer by doing non-domestic, either next to where you put the care of, street address, city, state, and then your zip code in brackets. In my comprehension of things, that does right there change the jurisdiction. And so while you're muddling through anything else that you can do, my comprehension is that does do it. Yeah.
I've been very successful. I've been very successful with that for some time. Now that I've moved to a very small area, the lady at the post office and the man who sometimes acts as the postmaster in Denison have literally conspired on the phone in front of me to keep my letters from me. And the big boys know how to do it. And when my letters were going to Grand Junction and then back to Glenwood Springs, all myself and my friends that were getting my letters, we've had no problem. And I've kept those letters in a file so I can show it's successful and recognized. And now that I've moved to this small area, I'm not getting my letters. They're holding them and extorting more money for me with my prepaid stamps, and I'm deciding how I want to handle that. I think I'm going to go after the postmaster, because the small statutory town that is near half hour from my location only has about 50 people in it, and the little old ladies down there at the post office are about the only ones that want to do it, bless them. But I need my letters, and suddenly I'm having trouble getting them, so it's been interesting. But I've had a lot of success with that address, yes.
This is Maria Janet. You might try calling your consumer advocacy department in the post office. They have a duty to make sure that you get your mail timely, and the penalties are very severe if they don't. Just call your consumer advocacy section of the post office. I yield.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you very much. One of the things that I have been trying to really get a handle on is invoking the UPU. Okay, so that's actually supposed to be a very powerful tool, and I've been studying David Wynn Miller along with the UPU. David Owen Miller teaches syntax and a lot of incredible stuff, and he's done an incredible amount of research, study, and action. And so I admire him a great deal. But, trying to consume all of this information has been overwhelming, actually. Nonetheless, the UPU does seem to, in the way that I see the UPU and invoking the UPU, the use of stamps, or where you're doing your jurisdictional challenge, but you're doing it on an international level, this is where the common law, or this is where your statutes and codes, please erase that, not common law, your statutes and codes have to be different than the rest of how things work, because you're invoking international law when you're invoking the UPU. You're invoking the international law in contract law, because that's all it is. It's commerce. It's all commerce. It all resides, or it all hinges on contracts, commerce, UPU. The UPU would be the actual laws that govern that commerce in a unified manner. Because without some common laws, they're pulled together from multiple countries, the UPU could not function under contract law. Contract law that is based on statutes and codes cannot be valid, and that is my opinion. And I'm anxious to hear back from anyone that knows anything more about that subject, because I think when you invoke the UPU, you have 21 days to challenge it through the postmaster. And if that postmaster does not bring you remedy, then you have a duty to take it further to, I hate to say this, but it would be the international law would be governed by the, MJ, if you can help me out with this, would be governed by the United Nations, unfortunately.
Governed by the law of nations.
Okay. See, I know there's something in there. It's like there's a twist, in how you deal with that. Because when you are invoking the UPU and international law, you are actually invoking the forces that we may not be so friendly with, or that we may not appreciate so much, because they're corrupt too, and they are infiltrated as well. Nonetheless, there are certain things that are point blank as far as how that works, and statutes and codes have to fade away. And as I said, that's my opinion. I yield.
If I may. This is Tamar. I've studied the postal stuff quite a bit, and one way that you can take your document, tickets, anything they hand you, and take it out of their jurisdiction is to immediately put any stamp in the lower right-hand corner and sign it upper left to lower right on it, and it takes that document out of their jurisdiction and makes use of postmaster of that document, and indeed it invokes UPU. And so it's one way to take a document out of their jurisdiction. I've got a whole folder on that stuff in my computer, but that's one way to take a document out of their jurisdiction, put a stamp in the lower right corner, and autograph over the top of it.
Thank you. Yes, that is what I have definitely come to the conclusion of in what I've studied. So there's another place that you can also put just a 2-cent stamp will do. You know, people will put different value of stamps, $1, 2-cent stamps, depending on what the documents are that they're dealing with. However, what I have not been able to run down is when you have stamped your document and you have not received remedy, which is the point, in my opinion, what do you do? If you take it to your postmaster, your local postmaster, and you say, you know, hey, you know, I didn't get any remedy here, and I'm the postmaster of my document, then from there, if that postmaster doesn't give you the remedy within a certain amount of time, then you do send it off to the UPU in Switzerland, I believe. But I've yet to talk with anyone or get any information from anyone who has actually invoked the UPU on an international level. And I'm looking for anyone that can help with that and, you know, give us information. With that, I yield.
If I may.
Please.
Hi, this is Captain Kevin again. This is for Mary Janet. You talked earlier about the indemnity bond. How do we set up an indemnity bond? And then also, you talked about registering your documents in Lamar, Georgia. Is that because that's the only true land court left in the country? And I yield.
Yes. The secured party creditor, guys, it's been 20 years since I did mine. So, Catherine, you've been doing yours lately. I don't know if there's any new information on that or not. Mine's been on file for 20-some years and was registered in the Lamar court. I yield.
I don't have anything new as far as I know, but I've never seen your secured party creditor agreement or any of your documentation that way for UCC filing.
My first UCC one was over 100 pages. I've redone my security agreement no less than 5 times over 46 years. The last one, I think, ended up being about 32 pages. And that was back in 2001. It's been a while since I've done mine. I yield.
And, okay, but personally, I don't know about how all of that works. I did my UCC filings a few months ago. And it included security agreement, secured party creditor agreement, indemnity bond, property list, attorney in fact. It was a beautiful packet of information. So, depending on where did you get your information, MJ, when you did yours 20 years ago?
Oh, my goodness. That's been an awful long time ago. Lynn Meredith had the 3 volumes. Something Vulture's Clothing or something like that. And a lot of it was in there. And over the years, there's been a lot of publications and a lot of different formats for secured party agreements. I think I updated mine probably 3 years ago, but on my last UCC filing, I did not include the entire document. I just cited it in the collateral box, and I found out that we don't really need to keep filing paper after paper page after page. You just need to cite to what you've named the document, as long as you have it in your private records, because it is private to you. No one else needs to see it but you. But as long as it's recorded with a notation, I even think I did a UCC filing about 2 years ago on my SESTA-QV account with a very special paragraph that I did on a collateral box change. So I've probably done a whole lot different stuff than anybody else, but I can't really say that it's activated or acted in my behalf, because it really hasn't. We're no closer to getting our children back, to getting the black robes and the blue shirts to leave us alone until now, when I've taken my claim against the owner. That's about the only thing that I can share that I've gotten any result from in the last 10 years. I yield. I don't know. Let me go a little further with that, Catherine. I don't know how many of you are aware of the Ninth Circuit case that came out January 3rd, and the tax case that came out early March, from the tax court. And the January 3rd case was any case that's built on perjured testimony or fabricated evidence. All the individuals involved in the case lose their immunities, and they can't get them back. It's a very powerful case to rely upon if you're dealing with dependency or child custody issues of that sort. The video recording of the pleadings before the judges was very, very telling. And if you have a case and you're trying to go into dependency and you start claiming fabricated evidence and perjured testimony, and all you got to do is play the recording, you guys, it's so clear that the Ninth Circuit came down and said anybody thinking that they can lie when they go into court, they lose their immunity, which opens them up to a suit from you against them for taking actions against you predicated on or based upon perjured testimony and fabricated evidence. Everybody knows those caseworkers lie through their teeth in order to get the kids away from the parents, and then the black robes let them continue lying without realizing that the black robe and all the suits and uniform blue shirts or gray suits in the courtroom all become liable to you and lose their immunities when they ignore exculpatory evidence and they rely upon the predicated on the perjured testimony and fabricated evidence. Now they have to go in and prove that none of it was fabricated and none of it was perjured. Well, that's a pretty hard thing to do when they never had firsthand knowledge of any of the actions concerning the kids to begin with. So that's what we're learning procedurally, guys. How to rely upon that, how to take the case right to the horse's mouth. And that's how come I'm getting the grease after 40-some years. I yield.
Thank you, MJ. Hey, I was curious about when earlier you were talking about when you move things to the court of record. And I was wondering, what do you mean by that? We've been studying on the court of record for a little bit now with Michael Hamilton and Judge Mickey.
Is it not true that a superior court has always had the authority of review? Any lower court or inferior court? Is it not true that the Court of Records and Article 3 Court of Records is the highest court in the land, as verbalized by the United States Supreme Court in Sneckleclaw? So
it is true.
The Court of Record is truly a superior court and has that right and ability to review then you need to bring in your challenge. The difficulty with the Court of Record right now with Judge Mickey and Judge Hamilton is that they're relying on the enforcement of a common law lien to encourage the violators to do what's right. And they're all coming in and saying, well, you can't file a common law lien on a piece of paper, which is what the Corporation Trust Company of America 1907 is. It's a corporation piece of paper. And nobody knows who the officers are, and the ones signing the Articles of Incorporation have long time died, but they've never changed the fact that the Corporation Trust Company owns everybody and everything else. So I took my pleadings and I altered them from divine inspiration, I call it, at 4 o'clock in the morning when you're sleeping nice and fine. And all of a sudden you wake up and there's a thought in your mind. You write it down. You get up the next morning, you look at it. Well, the statement was, file against the Corporation Trust Company of America 1907, comma, all John/Jane Doe officers, defendant. Then you can list all of the sub-defendants that are only get a courtesy notice that are not defendants. They only get a courtesy notice, so they're courtesy noticed non-defendant parties that actually did the damages. But under the agent-principal rule, or if you call it principal-agent rule, whichever, the principal is always liable for what the agents do. But the only thing I know is SH rolls downhill very damn fast. If you go after the owner's going to go find out who in the hell did the actual damage, and that person's going to pay the bill. And that's common knowledge in every business, in every kind of commercial transaction of everything in the world. Everything rolls downhill if you go after the big boy. So I went after the big boy. Now, I don't have any knowledge yet of what that's going to turn out because I'm just now at the stage of getting my paperwork finalized and ready to be served on the defendant, and only one defendant. I didn't make everybody that harmed me a defendant. I just made the big boy a defendant. I yield.
Well, that certainly sounds a lot easier to just make the big boys.
Well, you don't have to worry about one answer. You don't have to worry about answering 25 answers. But it was funny, guys, because all the answers, all the motions to dismiss, all the everything in our other case were all tendered by individuals that were not registered under the Foreign Agent Registration Act. So they had no status, capacity, or standing to do anything to, pick up a pencil, much less mark on a paper. So I don't know where it's all going to come out to be. I know the Court of Record is the highest court, and I know that the common law lien is the highest lien in the land.
Are you doing the Court of Records the same way that Mickey and Michael Hamilton?
Yes, absolutely. I've taken my oath. I am a Continental Court of Records Justice, and I'm right there with the both of them. But I'm saying I'm going to start my suit by going after all the John and Jane Doe officers of the defendant corporation. So I see no need in bringing in, well, there's two lines of thought. If you're going to make your claim against the state, the county, the city, they're going to have to give an answer. They can't give an answer because their answer can only violate the fundamental rule that they didn't have authority to begin with to interfere with the family as outlined and defined by the Ninth Circuit in the fundamental right of every parent, biological parent, to have 50% right in the children. You know, if there's two parents, if there's only one, And that parent gets 100% right to raise that child, no matter how they see fit to raise that child, even if that child is being abused. Period. You can't step in and change what the Vatican, the Catholic Church, the RERUM, the common law for eons and eons, that parents have a right to raise their biological children. Period. And these courts that are coming in, family courts, dependency courts, what have you, that are denying these biological parents their right, their fundamental paramount right that is so set down in cement, so established and solidified that it is beyond reproach, they never had authority to begin with to say anything. So even if the state comes in and answers with a black robe, 9 out of 10 of them are going to be unregistered, period. And so they're not going to have the status to answer in the court of record to begin with. So they're both going to work at the same time, both avenues. I'm just going to effectuate going after all the John and Jane Doe officers of the main owner corporation. And we'll see where it goes. I yield.
If I may, this is Pamela. What I have found in my research is how they end up with the right. Fortunately, lack of full disclosure avoids all contract. But the way they're doing that is with the marriage, the state, the civil marriage license, by law. And this is not on the marriage certificate anywhere, because we looked in fine print, the state is actually equal in your marriage to you and your husband. So, and in the law that they write in their office policies, I like to call them, the private policies, it says that they have equal status to you and your husband over your children and any property that's produced. And that it's not about if they can come and take their children, but when it's appropriate. And so one of the keys is rescinding that civil marriage contract so that as if it never was, and that there's a difference between being married and being bound in holy matrimony and having that recorded in your Bible. And once you're before your church witnesses, we never needed permission, just like everything else, to be bound in holy matrimony in the first place. But when we signed that marriage certificate that for a civil marriage, by their rules and their office policies, when you joined in with that particular adhesion contract, their codes and statutes, which I like to call their office policies, then say that with that adhesion contract, you gave them permission and you married them just like you married your husband. I yield.
We have a gentleman that divorced his wife through a rescission of signatures. It works pretty good. I yield.
I do think there is value in going back through your past and resolving all contracts. Part of learning what we're doing here, correcting your status and learning about contracts and consent and how it works in these de facto courts, which is, all of that is really important so you don't find yourself entrapped consenting through implied means or other, or contracting, in ways that you don't realize you're contracting. I think that learning all those things is important, and backing off, from new contracts. Now, I put myself in a situation here, I guess I could say it that way, where I have 3 vehicles and I have no valid plates now, and I have not renewed my insurance since I learned of all of the fraud and so on. Excuse me. Some people get nervous about riding with me. I just got my private plates, which are beautiful. However the question came up, is this going to attract the de facto more or, is it better to drive with expired plates? Well, I think when you're dealing with that kind of issue, where I'm going with it is the passport card is an international driver's license, and it does take you out of that jurisdiction. So even though I did apply for it, and I already paid the money, etc., they sent me the wrong one, and they put me back into the jurisdiction of the United States of America. When I contacted them and asked them about it, they said, well, you need to send us something telling us why you're not a U.S. citizen. So now I'm going to go back and address that and take care of it.
Take them
Point being is that you can be private, but you need that international driver's license. You need to be out of the jurisdiction clearly. And in my opinion, those UCC filings set your foundation. They're a public notice. You don't have to do UCC. You can do another form of a public notice. But to me, and what I've come to comprehend, those UCC filings are a public notice. So now you can begin to move forward and start doing your invoicing after you've done your correction and whatnot. Get yourself into a position where you're not a victim and you're not in a defense mode all the time. With that, I hope.
If I may,
please.
This is Maria Janet. Catherine, I'll send you over the Room case, Minnesota versus Room, REUM. There's only one way to become a U.S. citizen and none other. And if you don't live in all of the U.S. states, the Virgin Islands, Guam, Puerto Rico, Washington, D.C., you can never be a U.S. citizen under any circumstances. Send me an email and I'll send it over to you. I yield.
Great. Thank you, MJ.
If I may?
Please.
Hey, this is Captain Kevin. About the license plates and registration, I was watching a video, I think it was posted by Gary Darby today it's on YouTube, and it's called How the Police Are Brainwashed. And it's an interview with a veteran police chief, retired, and he talks all about sovereign status, and he's a Reformed, he's a Christian, and he admits that we're sovereign and we have the right to travel and we don't have to have any of those contracts. It's an amazing interview. You guys get a chance to listen to it. I yield.
Thank you. That sounds really good. I think right now one of the biggest pushes that most people can make is learning how to exercise your rights when it comes to the right to travel. Without a driver's license, without proof of insurance, and without plates that are licensed through the state. This is something that I personally have made the decision that I'm not going to recontract. I have not turned my driver's license in yet, but I plan on doing that this week as I'm straightening out the international driver's license or the DS-11 passport thing, because I don't want to be stuck with nothing that they recognize. So I do want that passport card that is the international driver's license. And it is an education process, you guys. You have got to learn how to educate anyone that you come in contact with from the de facto on what is going on, and doing it as a peaceful, non-combatant being is probably going to be important. I yield.
If I may.
Please.
If we're already caught up in the de facto system and we hadn't started correcting our status, is it possible to do it while you're under their probation and that kind of thing?
Well, it's correcting your status and doing these things, okay, learning how to get out of the matrix, basically. I think it's a long process. It's a 2-year process, minimum, if you're working hard. And in reality, it can be many years as you are dissolving your contracts with the de facto. Stopping the bleeding, for me, has been the most important thing. Is
Right.
How do I stop them from attacking?
Right.
And continuing with paper terrorism and threats, basically. So positioning yourself to do that is going to be important, and that's also going to require you to be very, very transparent with what you're doing, which can be nerve-wracking when you've got, Colorado grand jury members and so forth being arrested and detained, right? It's like, well, how much do I stand up? When are they going to come and take me away for standing? That's a whole different topic.
I believe in the lawfulness of all this line of thinking, and it's just like somebody mentioned earlier. What weight do they give it in the de facto courts? They have the numbers, they have the guns, they have the illegal power to do basically whatever they want to. I think until, it's like you got to wake more people up. They can swat one fly, or one bee, but if you get a whole swarm of bees, it's a lot more difficult. And it's just trying to convince the people that have been deceived since birth, that we're living in a totally messed up system. And I yield.
Thank you. It is a totally messed up system, and standing up is not easy, which is why not that many people, are willing to do it all the way. And as my license plates were expiring, I was thinking, well, okay, it's like 20 miles into town, 25 miles into town, and so it's kind of an all-day event whenever you go into town, and you always take a chance of running into the de facto, which I have, and I have a camera in my car, and they're recorded, and I have a binder in my car with multiple documents, including my authenticated birth certificate and my notice of affidavit of suffrage. And, I have dealt with these guys. I will not appear in their court physically. I will appear in their courts on paper under the legal entity, the fictional character, which I am the secured party creditor for. I know I'm not a debtor. I know I'm a creditor. And my credit is unlimited. And furthermore, I do business as the legal name. I'm not the legal name. I've changed all of that. And so, we keep on trudging forward. There are success stories along the way, and there are horror stories, so where is the line? What determines who is detained and how they detain them versus those that seem to get their mortgages taken care of? Children return seems to be not so popular on the list, okay, but we're getting there. We're going to get there. It's, right now, to me, it's simple to stand up for your rights as a traveler. That is done. We've got everything to show that, and to also assess a fee for detainment. If you detain us for an hour, it's $65,000. For a day, it's $1.5 million or something to that tune. I carry those documents with me, and I won't hesitate to hand them to anyone that detains me and let them know that I'm going to give you about 4 minutes, and then you go on the clock. And you're being audio recorded, video recorded, and if I can live stream, I will. So, it's just the time that we live in. They may bash your windows in and choose to take you away. On the other hand, I've been met with respect from the de facto for standing up for myself, and I've had good conversations, and I have not had a ticket or a problem. I did get a summons. I did get a summons over parking tickets, and it was to me it was a perfect trial, because what better minimal, thing could I battle than parking tickets, right? And they literally put a boot on my car as I was sitting in my car. Wow. And I got them to take it off.
Well, if I may, sorry, I had another thought while you were replying there. I've attended many calls. I attend the Marshall's calls, and I go look at the YouTube videos and the Facebook pages and the other web pages. There's so much information. Some of it's contradicting, and I speak with Marshall Schubert a lot. And what would help me as a new person coming in is trying to, if there was some kind of, I haven't seen anything that there was an instruction, first, correct your status by doing steps A, B, and C, then get your travel freedoms back, doing, E, F, G, it's kind of like you have to make your own roadmap through this crazy maze, and I didn't know if there's anything you could recommend.
Well, personally, I do recommend that you, comprehend that you're in a spiritual battle and it's being played out in the physical realm.
Well, I understand that.
So, your intentions in all of this are very key, in my opinion. It's very easy to get caught up in the lower vibrations of hate and anger, although anger is not a bad thing, but it can turn into a bad thing. So moving forward with your intentions always being for the good of all.
Exactly.
In my opinion, is very important. We're never going to get to a rainbow bridge where, life is all roses and butterflies. It's not going to happen. We've got to help our fellow humans who have suffered, and we've suffered. Okay, so there's a lot of healing to be done, and that's what I'm really looking for, is how we all come together and help heal one another in this. And what we do, the intention of what we do has to be for not selfish means, but for the good of all, or you're going to fail in this war. We are at war, and this is war.
Absolutely. And I get that, and I see the whole higher level. Every time I attend or watch a video, talk with somebody, I get the higher level concepts. It's just that, they say the devil's in the details, and I'm missing the details, and that's what I'm looking for, is the details, and try to, if I have to, I'll plot out my own path. I guess everybody has to, but it would be great if we had a reference map to go by. I'm not a real analytical, logical thinker, so even though I can see the high level concepts, I need the actual blueprints, I guess. If I have to make them myself, I will. It's just it's hard to move forward, even with the best and greatest intentions, if you don't know what the next street is you need to move to. So I guess that was my question, or my concern.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. Some people who have been at this for a little while and have done many steps, we tend to forget that there are people that are still starting from scratch, and moving forward. And while nobody has I think we all have the keys to the kingdom, but we haven't learned to use them completely yet. It's important to get back to basic steps that everybody can do, which, from what I have learned, would be go ahead and authenticate your birth certificate, get a copy of your record of live birth, and by all means have that authenticated if the Spirit leads you to. In my situation, I ended up with, like I said, the record of live birth with no authentication, and then I have the birth certificates that are authenticated on multiple levels. And I made copies of the authenticated ones and sent in my record of live birth with a covered letter instructing, what it was that I was looking to do and the crimes that have come against me and my family. So that process, doing the treasury thing, took me quite a while. Just the cover letter alone, I felt had to be done very personally. And
right.
while I had taken somebody else's cover letter, basically, and kind of used it as a template, I really came to the conclusion that had to be written from me. Okay, and knowing that record of live birth number isn't attached to an account that is being used and has been used, and was you were born into a debt-based society that turns you into a debt slave from the cradle, and that was unlawful, and is nothing to slavery, which is illegal and unlawful. So being able to kind of put things into a nutshell in a way where you're identifying account numbers. So you're talking about after you do the authentication of your birth certificate.
So you do the authentication just to get those account numbers. Is that the objective of that step?
No, really the objective of doing your authentication is proving life, okay, because you're going to go back to that 52B, 1666, where we were all declared dead. All of the wealth was taken by the king and put into trust under, in our case, a legal entity name, and then you were declared dead, lost at sea, and then you're also incompetent and you're ward of the state and a million other things. Not a million, but there's multiple things that you're considered. So the dead part is really disturbing, okay? But you get it when you try and go into a courtroom and speak, and they don't seem to hear you, right? Well, they can't hear you. You're a corporation in their way of doing things, and you're the living being, and you're screaming out, no. I said blah, blah, blah. They don't hear. And it's no wonder, because you're considered dead and incompetent and all of those things. So you can't be trusted. You can't be even viewed, looked at, as a living being. So authenticating your birth certificate is one way of you're setting a foundation for proving your life.
Right.
Okay, you are alive. You're a living, sentient being. And I hope that helps you.
Oh, absolutely. That provided great detail on my first step on this journey. So we'll take it a step at a time. I don't want to take everybody's time, but I'll yield. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you.
On your journey there. Anyone else out there have more questions for MJ or in general, or speak right up? Well, I'm hoping next week I can get Mary on to give us more details about her DS-11 and international driver's license. I think that was really good. It's been said that DS-11 is the silver bullet. Maybe it is. I don't know. I've heard much good praise on it. I'm also hoping that we can get Jules or Julie, for those of you who are familiar with who Julie is. I don't have her last name here, but she's done an awful lot. She's been through a great deal, and she's very knowledgeable. on status correction and the legal entity name. And then I'll be looking for other guests that can join us and work on all of this together. And that's really what I'm hoping that we can do is there's going to be people that have done the Exiting the Matrix or have listened to it and want to learn more. And then there's going to be those that have done a great deal in this whole battle of status correction and learning how to stand up for our rights. So I think that we can learn so much from each other, and we can help one another and hopefully build maybe some teams of people that can help with different processes. And with that, I yield, and the floor is open for anyone that has any comments, questions, concerns, etc.
If I may,
Please.
I was under the impression on the NFDA site that those IDs and those plates were being effective and recognized in all 50 states by law enforcement, and that was a remedy. What does they know about that? I guess that would...
I'm sorry, you totally lost me on that. I'm not sure. Does anyone else know? What did you call that?
There's a website, nsda.us, and they have... I found that site through Sovereign Living, the man that does those audios on YouTube, said that he had been using that ID very successfully, and so that's why I went over there. I thought MJ would know more about that.
I used those plates for 4.5 years. In August of 2016, I had a young trooper that was just out of trooper school 1 week who decided to challenge the plates and couldn't give me a traffic ticket. I did nothing wrong, but they had found a moldy old warrant that a judge had issued wrongfully, and so they took me to jail with the warrant and confiscated the plates. And right now that situation is sitting ready for my international summary judgment order from the International Environmental Court. So yes, they are being honored, and yes, they are being acknowledged if you know how to defend it.
Okay.
The warrant I couldn't do anything about, but it took the second judge 12 hours later looking at the case to say, she completed everything 3 years prior. Case closed.
So what about the ID, though, Janet? The ID card.
IDs I am using successfully. I'm also using my international driving license permit from the UN, not from the UN, but backed by the UN and backed by the 1949 treaty, which President Wilson, I believe it was, signed the treaty in 49 with the right to travel. And that international ID is listed. My international ID, I use a Belize address, and page 49 of TSA's International ID book contains my Belize ID card in their system. So yes, it is being recognized, and I carry both of them.
Can you
now,
get
I have not executed.
I
have not executed on either one of my situations yet. I've still been building a case. But as I told the young trooper who decided to be stupid, I may not make my claim today. I may not make it tomorrow. But rest assured, I will make it. And right now, the word I'm getting back from underground is that they're scared spitless of me. They don't know what I'm going to do next. When the hammer falls, it's going to fall very hard. But I drove on those environmental court plates and SCA plates for 4.5 years with no incident at all. But you do have to know how to defend it, and you do have to have the rest of your status in line and corrected, ready, so that you can defend what you're doing with a record that shows you have changed your status to sovereign. So, I tell everybody it is very good to get rid of the other and register your car with NSCA, because that deregisters all the other registrations.
Can you register your car with? Can you register your car with NSCA?
The NSCA's registration, but they have a formal form now, deregisters the state's registration.
Can you register your car with NSCA without getting the ID and all that?
Well, you have to have the plates, and you can't get the plates without getting the ID.
Okay.
So you've got to make sure that you want to be listed on their international records as a sovereign.
Okay.
And Thank you. I carry all three, folks. And I go around town, and everybody asks me for my driver's license, and I show them the international one. Or if I show them my environmental court ID, I say, I don't have a driver's license, I don't drive anymore. And so then they take it, and I've had no trouble with it.
Mm-hmm. Your international driver's license, did you get that through travel agent or just online through?
I got that through IEDP. That's all I can tell you. Send me an email. I'll send it back to you, Catherine.
I emailed you some time ago, but I think you're busy.
It's
I sent you an email some time ago. How much?
It's only $60 to get the international driving license. NSCA's plates and ID cards and registration, it might cost you about $120. I'm not sure. Well, you have to get
they just raise the price.
They'll list all what they, and I know that Sandra Karen doesn't charge any more than what it takes to create what you need. They're not making a dime on anything.
Okay.
So it's just what the cost of getting the things made. But, get a hold of NSCA and talk to Sandra Karen. She's very knowledgeable. But
what is that name again?
On my rig.
What is that name again? Sam?
NSCA.us.
Yeah, I've been there. I thought you gave the name of somebody to talk to.
Sandra Karen.
Okay, yeah, I think I have seen that name on there. All right, thank you.
Just go to contact us and get in contact, and she'll get back with you. If you don't get any luck, go through Catherine and tell me who you are, and I'll get Sandra Karen to get a hold of you.
Okay. If I may, on as far as judges are concerned, you are aware that when they are administrating mere codes and statutes, that they are no longer judges. They are administrative clerks. So they're actually fraudulent. They're not even judges.
Correct. They're non-registered foreign agents to boot.
And they can't. I wonder how they do have this stuff they do, because they're doing it without a warrant, without consent, without authority. A judge has to sign a warrant only with the authority of the grand jury. They don't have that. They don't have a signature. They're not even a judge. They're a clerk. Basically,
they may not be signing valid orders to begin with. They may only be signing docket entries.
And wouldn't
you have to talk to Kevin about.
So I'm sitting here thinking that we could just get rid of half this stuff with void judgment, whereas, ABC, there's like about 50 things you could put down there, and just put in a void judgment on everything.
Well, I think it's a little more complicated than that. But you can do a whole lot with one sentence.
Yeah.
You don't need volumes of killing trees, I found out. One sentence will do the trick.
So I
Okay,
agree.
guys, with that, I'm going to have to drop off. I've got some other things I've got to do. Thank you for inviting me tonight. I'll try and get back another day. Just depends on what my schedule is like. So everybody have a wonderful evening, and I yield.
Thank you, MJ, for joining us and for gracing us with your presence tonight and sharing your wonderful information. I think we're going to try and continue these calls on Mondays, so I'll continue to send you invitations, and would love it if you would join us.
That'll be great. If I'm available, I'll come. If not, then we'll just have to do the next time. Thanks a bunch, everybody, and good night.
Good night, MJ. Okay, so the floor is open. If anyone has any questions, comments, or anything that you'd like to bring to the table, please do.
If I may.
Please.
Are these calls, I guess they were being recorded. Is there a link that you can listen to previous calls?
Marshall Schubert, this is the first call that we've started for status correction.
Okay.
And I believe they're being recorded. Our moderator might pipe in here in a second here to let us know if there's a callback number or how you retrieve the recorded the recorded call.
Okay.
If I may.
If I may. This is Marshall Schubert.
Thank you.
Mr. Batchelor, I will send you a link. Take care of that.
Okay.
I don't know the number by heart because it's different than any of the other numbers. So it's actually something I've got to track down.
Okay. Well, like I texted you earlier, I'm going to try to, go through and start documenting a lot of these steps and procedures and the details because, like I was mentioning earlier, I think, everybody that truly wants the good and lawful, life, really wants to follow through and do these kind of things, but then we all get lost in the details. I think if we had some kind of resource to reference, and I don't know if there's even a place to put it, but I think as we progress through the meetings and the conversations, I think if we could try to condense and, combine everybody's experiences, knowledge, references, then it'd make it easier to disseminate to people who are trying to do the right thing as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think the more these calls go on, we'll kind of hone in, if you will, on the processes that probably will be better. And another thing is like everybody that's in the Marshall's chat is, kind of working on this as well. So there'll probably be other things unexpected come up, which I think it'll be great.
Right. All right. I yield. Thank you.
I yield.
Thank you. I'm looking so forward to the things that are going to be revealed to us in the upcoming weeks, especially with the times that are changing and the dying fiat currency system. We have got to learn how to stand up for our rights, self-govern, and move forward with more of a natural currency comprehension of things so we can start to get back to the way that we were born to live, the way that we were meant to live, not based on artificial means, but based on real natural life experiences and how things are supposed to be done. And we're not supposed to be living under threat and tyranny and pain and suffering and all of these things. And I believe that we're finding the ways out of these things, moving into the private and out of the public. And so thank you guys so much for
if I may.
Please.
Hey, this is Captain Kevin again. Schubert, I just want to let you know I just sent you that link you asked for. And real quick, I wanted to share an experience I've had recently with a traffic stop I had. I refused to sign the ticket and basically refused to contract with them right there on site. And the case basically never went anywhere after that. I have had acquaintances who have been forced to sign tickets, and if you have to sign the ticket, you always want to sign it under duress. I yield.
You know what I've been doing with the place where you put your it's actually your autograph. Always make sure that you put your without prejudice, your signature, and the UCC 1-308. That's what I do. Lately, I've been signing things for my debit credit card, just UCC 1-308. I don't put anything else. And there's interesting things about that because, for example, if you sign a check, you write a personal check to someone, to a company or whatever, and you put that on, it really screws things up because they cannot turn that into a commercial instrument if you sign it that way. So when I sign a check, I put the without prejudice above my name. I autograph my name, my proper name, and then I put UCC 1-308 underneath that. And what I have discovered is that really messes the banks up since they cannot turn it into a commercial instrument. So there's things that we can do along the way. And if you are under duress by the de facto and you do have to sign something, then make sure you cover your tracks there and then learn what to do going forward on how to deal with those summons and tickets and whatnot. We don't want to be playing in their de facto courts. They're illegitimate or they're invalid courts, and we don't want to encourage them by validating their presumed authorities over us because they don't really have authority. We are the authority. And you've got to learn how to not contract with them. They use very simple things to get implied consent, so forth and so on. So if you are apprehended, kidnapped by the de facto, and then they're detaining you, imprisoning you, and you agree to take on an attorney, agree to take their attorneys, you just consented. You just admitted that you are incompetent. And that can be really harsh if you've got a dying loved one on the outside and you need to get out to take care of that loved one. That's duress. So I get it. It happens to all of us. Nonetheless, if you have to sign something that gives them the implied consent, you better know what to do next. Keep yourself out of trouble. And, of course, there are no guarantees anyway. Look at Tim Turner and so many others that have gone to prison teaching wonderful things that we need to know. So there are times when if you stand up too much, you just have to know that you could be taken. And you may spend many, many years in prison for standing up. But that's where your intention in the spiritual battle, I think, does play a part in it. Keep your intentions pure. Jesus already bled and died for us. We don't need to. And I yield.
If I may, two things. I'd like someone to elaborate on how it looks appearing by paper in court more practically, what is that exactly? I mean, is there a variation of things you write? You just make a declaration and put it into the case? Is that appearing on paper?
There are different things that you can do. Recently, I had an interaction with the de facto over parking tickets where they booted my car, and I took a summons, and I did sign under duress with the UCC 1-308, etc. I brought the summons home, and to make it easier for them, not that it's based on not that it's a rule that I believe in, but that 72-hour rule of voiding a contract.
Right.
I decided to go ahead and apply that. And then I did take information, and I wrote across the summons, and I don't have the exact wording in front of me, but I did write across the summons, that I was not contracting, basically, and that I wouldn't be in the commercial dishonor of the whole thing. And I'm happy to share all of that information, in the weeks to come. I'll gather.
Well, if I may, what I ran into when I wanted to do that, I knew you had like 3 days to reject the contract, but my husband said it's a lot easier just right on the side of the road, or reject your offer to contract and not to contract. But of course, you can't avoid that, because I've had people get threatened. They conveyed a threat. But our first ticket, we were running around everywhere, and I had the papers all done about not wanting to contract and rejecting your offer to contract and all that, with that 72-hour rule. And we didn't know where to go that first time. Do we go to the officer, address him, the attorney, the court, write something into the court? And, of course, we got
apparently the first thing, apparently when you're doing that, you are taking the name of the officer that wrote the summons, and you are addressing him, and you're sending your document to them.
You're sending it to the officer.
Correct.
Okay. Because what I do know is under the UBC, that man who's acting as a police officer, by law, there is no law that requires you to identify yourself, first off. But under the UBC, they are required to have an ID that has their photo on it, their where they work, what the department they work in, and their authority. But they're supposed to have the bonding company on it, the phone number, and the address of the bonding company. So it's very, very specific, and that they're required to have this, and they're supposed to show it to you. Of course, whoever hires them, the city, the police department, whatever, is supposed to give them that. That UBC is really something to look at. There's some pretty powerful stuff there.
UCC, is that what you said?
The UBC, the Universal Bonding Code. I'm tongue-tied tonight. I've got a great little document on that, and it's fantastic. There's a lot of real powerful stuff in there. But that's something to look at. And I wish I had that in front of me. I got too many papers, and I'm away from home. And so I've got my briefcase. I wish I had it with me. But I have a great UBC printout that has just been priceless, that just talks about that officer. He's the one that has all the requirements to identify himself. So, some of the things I like to ask, I had a conversation with a little girl, and I was trying to rescind that very first ticket when we were learning about, who to go to and all that. And I was at the state trooper's office, and the girl, she had her name badge on, and she was a big girl, pretty, but just tall, big. And she had her initials, her name with her initials. And I said, well, what's your name? Or what is Casey Jenkins, I think it means. And she said, my name. And I said, well, surely. And you want to joke and be kind. I do things like joking with people, so I'm not arrogant or mean or anything. And I asked her, I said, well, and I remember asking her about, well, surely your mama didn't name you Trooper Jenkins. And she laughed, and she goes, well, I think she probably wanted to some days. So we got a little bit of a rapport going, but And I asked her, so what does that mean? So what's your middle name? Well, my middle name. She's being, and I said, well, surely you're not an imposter in office. And she's right. Post haste gave me her middle name. But there's little things about asking, well, surely you're not an imposter in office, because you can't get in trouble asking questions. And if you know some of these terms, they get a little nervous, and they just give you what you need. But
well, they got a little nervous with me when I mentioned extortion. Because what happened is I had a young family in my car with a baby, and it was cold outside, and I was waiting in front of the bank, parked at a parking meter, and there was money in the meter, so it wasn't expired or anything. But I had parking tickets from previous parking tickets that I never paid, and I actually sent those in to the IRS and did 1099s on them. Okay, I get it. They're commercial instruments, transmitting utilities. I'm trying to squelch all of that. And the parking meter came up behind me and blocked me in. I was minding my own business, didn't even know she was there. So I went to start the car when the young family came out of the bank and got into the car, and, I was getting ready to go. And she had me blocked in. And I, went to her and said, what are you doing, or whatever. And she put a boot on my car, and long story short, I asked her, well, what does it take to get this boot removed? I've got a baby in the car here, and, you're going to strand us. And she said, well, it was $170 or something to that tune. And I said, so you need to extort me for $170 in order to get the boot off my car. And she got real nervous at that point and called an officer in to help her, who then offered to give me a summons to get the boot off of the car. Well, obviously that's the rest, especially when I've got an infant that I'm caring for. But nonetheless, I will tell you, there was a flash that came over that parking meter made face when I went to her and said, what are you doing? You're acting crazy. I've got a baby in the car. I've got a young family, and you're about to strand us in the cold. Are you aware you're working for a corporation, a privately owned one? And I'll tell you, she got a flash over her face when I started pointing out to her how crazy she was being for a corporation. So I encourage everybody, wake them up, slap them with reality of what they're doing. Let them know they're harming the living beings. And that's where I'm at. So I hope that this information tonight has really helped people, and I'm learning as I go, and working multiple processes, including 1099 process, UCC, learning the common law and how it really works. The birth certificate is a linchpin to the whole thing. That is where your identity theft comes into play. That's where the slave document, that is your slave document, which is illegal. We all know that. So learning these basic things and then following some processes to get ourselves cleared so that we cannot be kidnapped and apprehended in the future is where we're going. We're looking to correct the records. We're all serving an AI machine, artificial intelligence. The people that are enforcing the things that we're dealing with are serving an AI machine. They're ignorant. They don't know what they're doing. So we're out to correct the records. We're out to reprogram or program that AI machine to do the correct thing according to the laws that are already built in to protect us. So when you start to take it personal, back off and realize there's nothing personal about it. It's business, and it's an AI machine. And so you can let go of a lot of your fears. And if anyone else has anything to ask or contribute,
hey, if I may.
Please.
Yeah, idiot on Colorado. The woman who spoke of the universal bonding, I think that's a really good approach. If you all go to your state constitutions, you should you'll find in there that they're all required to have an oath and a bond. So it would be good to have that information handy where that is in your Constitution to go with that. And I think it's a good thing to call them on. Be careful. The 8 jailed in Colorado, we're noticing officials on that. So, but if you have those two together to back that. And the other thing, I don't know how many people on this call. I think it's a good call, and it's going to be a good call. But I would ask if it could possibly be moved to Saturday. The reason I'm on this call is the call I'm normally on Monday, which is recorded, and I will go back and listen to it. But I was having a real hard time hearing them tonight. They were having trouble. I don't know what the troubles were, but and that's a call that I would recommend to anybody that's on this call. And the way to access it is send an email to 123free2me @gmail, and you will catch up on the documents and the past calls. So just a suggestion.
If I may.
Please.
Yeah, you.
Thank you. After studying, I find there is wisdom in a multitude of counsel, and that even people we don't all seem to care for. I read through, and I'm persistent reading through a lot of blah, 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 and I find that you got to be careful not throwing out the baby with the bathwater, and that there's some gems, that the people have some real important gems, if you're willing to listen, and you gather those, and they start coming together in a puzzle. But one that's coming to the top for me after 5 years of really studying and listening and learning all this stuff is Carl Lentz. And I will say, when I first started listening to him, he was simple, and it was something I could wrap my hand around and get started, felt like I could do. But then I started still listening to all this other stuff, and then I came back to him. And the more I hear and the more I learn over these years, and I go back, I will tell you, the more I think this man isn't a genius. Because everything he does, everything we talk about, everything we do is wrapped up in his method. And he also talks about using the federal district court, in the district court to get you into the court of records and keep it very concise. He's big on the one-syllable words, less words is more, is better. And if you want to know how to move in common law and be a man or live as a man, he really has it down pat. And when you bring him up on YouTube, his stuff is labeled so detailed that there's anything. Talking to a prosecutor, talking to a judge, filing claims, what to do if you're arrested, handling yourself in court. He's got everything, and I will tell you, the more you learn about this and then go back to listen to him, he's a genius. And he's the only one ever that's ever beat Queen's Bench. A judge came off the bench and shook his hand and told him I never thought I'd ever seen anybody beat Queen's Bench, let alone a man from America. And he's gracious, and he's professional. He's unfortunately somewhat profane on his talks, but that's less and less over time. His older ones are pretty bad, but the newer ones are substantially less so. But I would highly, highly recommend reviewing Carl Lentz on YouTube, especially after all these years of reading all this stuff. I think you'd be pleased and find a lot of helpful stuff there. I yield.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Carl Lentz, I think, is great. He's I've always found him to be so far ahead of me, but that's been my most difficult thing. But I would love to be able to get him on one of our calls.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
You know, and get him to give us a spill here on what's going on in his world, and contribute to helping with this whole thing. So I'll put that on my agenda. And if you have any, if you know how to get in touch with them or whatever, I'm going to go ahead and give my email address out. And I'm hosting the shows here. So I'm known as Little Deer in Colorado. Also Marshall Swilly, Catherine Swilly. My email address is SWIL1960@gmx.com.
Did you say G as in George?
Yes.
MX.
gmx.com. And I'll say it again. It's SWIL1960@gmx.com.
X as in xylophone?
Correct. Thank you. And yes, I would love to have Carl Lentz join us on one or more of our calls here as we go through this process. You know, I'd love to bring in some wonderful people who have lived the experience and they know. And Carl Lentz is definitely one of those. I yield.
If I may, one last time. An article came out today or yesterday late that Winston Shrout is in tax court. Has anybody heard any more about that? When I read the article, it didn't sound like he knew much. He kind of seemed to be sniveling through it, which surprised me. I haven't really listened to him much. But anyway, he's in the news and he's in tax court. He's holding, and it doesn't sound like he's got many, if any, arguments. Of course, it's a lot of propaganda in the media. They turn the stories. So they're quoting him and saying, "Oh, well, gee, I was just doing what I could get away with."
Oh, wow. Thank you. No, I have not heard anything new about Winston Shrout or anything about that. So thanks for bringing that forward. I'll have to be looking out for that information.
If I may.
Please.
I just heard tonight that he was convicted. So I don't know whether he's going to be appealed. And that I just heard that from that other call I mentioned. Carl Lentz is hard to get a hold of on the phone. He just doesn't pick up a lot. But I'll try to pass that on.
As it is right now, though, we've got a Marshall's call on Tuesday nights. We have We the People call on Wednesdays, starting with Colorado, moving to the national, and then there's another national call on Fridays that's supposed to be for We the People and all of the Continental grand jury administrators, marshals, and justices across the nation on Fridays. So that's a really good call, really important call. And now, I don't know, we're running into all kinds of snags after that, from what I can see. with calls. But I'm open for Mondays, and Sundays are okay for me too. And Saturdays, it sounds like that's probably not going to work out. And based on what I remember from other people, that probably wouldn't work. How about if we table that right now?
No, that's fine. That's just the other call I mentioned is a good call. That's all.
Okay.
May I ask what part of Colorado you're near?
I'm in the Four Corners area of Colorado, by Durango.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm way over on the Front Range, so don't get down your way often enough.
Yeah. Boulder or?
Between the Springs and Denver. Colorado Springs and Denver.
That's not too bad. You know, those Denver trips can be long. I don't do those unless absolutely necessary, which isn't very often.
Unless you want to talk to the Secretary of State face to face, not a lot of good reasons to go to Denver.
Yeah, well, I don't see that. I've looked at the picture, and no, I don't see any reason to drive there and see the Secretary of State face to face.
No, the best reason to go there is a show at Red Rocks.
Exactly.
There you go.
Right. No official business. I don't do official business. It's Babylon. In the deep parts of Babylon.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I'm actually a very I have chickens and live in a little cabin in the woods, in the mountains, and the chickens are very happy, and got a German Shepherd dog and teacup Persian cat that weighs about 3 pounds, maybe 3.
Well, there were some good people doing this work down there. There was a guy over at Ignacio. There was another guy out of Cortez. Some of the old-timers in this battle were down your way. The one guy, I think he's gone to Belize. And the other guy, I don't know what's going on with him lately.
I have a hard time finding people in my local area. Although, no, I've run into some that are definitely, you know, they know a lot more than what meets the eye. Okay, I've learned that. But it would be nice to find others that are doing these calls, you know, with us and working some of the same processes of exercising the right to travel.
Putting it out there.
Right.
You know, you're gonna. Most people, unless they have an issue or have had a problem, you know, they don't necessarily. It's like the blue pill and the red pill. They don't necessarily even want to know. But a good little icebreaker is the hold up your driver's license. Is that you? Most people say, oh, yeah, that's me. You know, oh, that's not a little card with pictures and symbols on it.
Uh-huh. And comprehending, you know, once again, the birth certificate, the linchpin, you know, the legal entity that is on that driver's license. That cannot be you. It can't be you, because that legal entity has traveled all over the world. Have you? I haven't been to Spain or, you know, wherever. That legal entity has been all over, though. It's traveled. It's a commercial instrument.
Be a nice way to travel if you could get in an envelope and put a stamp on it, huh?
What's that?
That would be a nice way to travel if you
Right.
could do that.
Oh, no, that legal entity has amassed much wealth through patenting and copyright procedures, and while the bar attorneys took power of attorney over those legal entities and did that for us, it's still actually our property. And
yeah, just give me a cut. Just give me my cut for all the money you made off of.
Somewhere along the way here, the whole thing, I think Ken Dost is doing very well with the uncovering of the fraud and setting the record straight and doing, definitely correcting status and furthermore, I think what Ken Dost has done is laid himself a foundation that is a completely lawful legal process based on law, and he's done it in a non-combatant manner, as well as learning to move into that private sector. I don't know why some people are met with incredible resistance and are detained or kidnapped, who are very good people, while others are successful in this whole thing and have no issues, it seems. But I would say that Ken Dost is one that I definitely feel is worth learning from. He's learned the fraud, he's learned the processes, and learned how to put them all in place.
Who is it
and
you're talking
seems
about?
to be doing well. Ken Dost.
Okay, yeah. He's been on Angela's show a few times.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, you're right, he's good. Another one, and his last show on Angela's show is Adam Beck. He used to call himself Vic Beck. He kept his presentation to an hour on this show, intentionally on Angela's show last time he was on. That one's probably worth a re-listen.
No doubt. Well, I'm very sad to hear about Winston Shroud.
Well, he wanted that. He wanted that battle because he wanted to bring up Northern Trust. So I don't know, that's all I heard was that one line tonight. I would be curious. I would sure like to read about that case.
Right. He's been such a forerunner, in learning so much, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
So
I think
they
it was last
convicted him or they arrested him?
Pardon?
They convicted him or they arrested him?
I heard he was convicted. But that
so
was...
he was arrested when? Or charged when?
That's been in the works, I don't know, that for a while.
Wow. I didn't know that. Tim Turner, was one that I learned about just recently, actually, when I discovered some of his material, and then I found out that he was kidnapped and sentenced for like tax evasion or fraudulent bonds or something along that line. And a lot of people have sat back and and really looked at his staff as well as others who have unfortunately suffered the same type of fate for just doing the right thing and trying to find the common denominators of what happened. Did they do anything wrong, or is this just how that plays out? How do we battle against these guys? How do we continue to battle against them? They are stepping up their game. Taking Winston Shroud is stepping up their game, don't you think?
Well, were you on Hartford's call on Sunday?
No. I wasn't.
Well, he and Paul and a few other people on some of the other calls talking about the guys down there in Denver. And at least one opinion is the notice of fraud and that sort of thing is not what pissed them off, but it was the liens, the commercial liens.
Probably. I think it was. I had heard one of the judges went to send his daughter off to college,
right,
and found out he was broke.
Yeah.
And so they considered that to be an injury. And it's like, oh, well. I mean, my feeling on that is like, oh my goodness, you went to do something and you found out you were broke. Huh. And you're all hurt about that, right? Well, join the We Got Hurt Club, right? They're over here.
Oh, I think it's absolutely the right thing to do, but there has to be more of us.
Well, there's no shortage of those that have been hurt, so, okay. Yeah, many have been hurt. That's what I heard, okay, and I do believe that came from a reliable source, so it's probably true that one of the commercial liens that are in place did take effect, and the repercussions began, so they took our people. That's a real drag. They took our people. They're not even in their jurisdiction. But remember, 4 of them consented to attorneys. I'm really concerned about that. Didn't they just put themselves back in the jurisdiction?
My understanding is only one took an attorney, and the attorney asked for a bond reduction and got it, a considerable bond reduction, and he bonded out. So
yeah, I did hear that, and unfortunately it also sounded like he was truly under great duress because his wife was ill.
Right.
Right?
Right. So,
yeah, so he needed to get out.
I mean, I can't fault, it's great for the other guys are standing tough and everything, but I can't fault anybody for doing that. You can't. It's really difficult to do any meaningful work from inside there.
I know. I hear you. It is. I get all of that too. So they make it tough on purpose.
Oh yeah. They'll
come
and get you at 3 a.m. for your hour in the law library, and you better take it because otherwise you won't get it.
Right.
Things
they
like
need
that. They just, intentionally, it's like they let sadists run the place,
Right. Yeah, low level normally. But on the other hand, I will say that in dealing with the lower level de facto, seems like you have a better chance of reaching them. They seem to question things anyway. Okay, so for example, is that when I was speaking with the alleged de facto officer over the parking thing, I gave him my notice of suffrage, and I said, look, I'm not a U.S. citizen. And I said, I don't have my credentials yet, but I'm not a U.S. citizen. Here's my notice affidavit of suffrage. Here's my marshal's oath, Continental Marshal. And I told him, I said something about it being a corporation. I'm not part of the corporation. And he stopped and said, what? And he really didn't know what I was talking about. I truly believe he did not know what I was talking about. I said, no, it's a corporation. It's a privately owned. I said, surely you already know that. And he said, no. And I said, oh, yeah, the United States is a corporation. It's United States Inc. And then all of the states and the counties are basically franchises. They're corporations as well, sub-corporations. And they're privately owned. And then I went on to tell him that, in fact, in this area here, the corporations such as Sheriff's Department, your police department, etc., are owned by generally 1 to 4 people. They have Dun & Bradstreet numbers. And they're privately owned. I don't know who the owners are exactly yet. And when you say something like that, 1 to 4 owners, and I don't know who the actual owners are yet, it makes them, do your best to educate these guys. They need to know. They're privately owned corporations, okay? And
I think that's excellent. And bringing up the bond, I think all that's good. And court begins at the side of the road. So I think all that's excellent, and do as much of that as you can. You can gauge, if he's going to pull his gun or get his club out.
Correct.
So you can stop at that point. And
right.
The point on whoever was asking about the 3-day, that's based on they used to call it the Lemon Law. You bought a bad car.
Right.
You had 3 days to take it back with no questions.
Right.
And that's certainly a legitimate technique, and it's easy because you don't have to deal with anybody again. You just make sure you make a copy of all that, so if somebody brings it up later, it's like, no, hey, here's the evidence. I mailed it back.
I carry a few different documents with me. My notice of affidavit of suffrage is one. My marshal's oath is another. My authenticated birth certificate is another. So I just carry a small binder in my car with those documents. But then, now I've got the card. I let them know that, your audio and videotape. So I turn the camera right on them from my dashboard. I just flip it around. So they're being recorded. Please.
The only problem with giving the officers the law on the side of the road is they're trained that everybody is in commerce. Earlier I talked about an interview with a police chief and sheriff, and that's what he said. They're not trained in the law. They're trained that everybody is in commerce. So arguing the law with them, unless they are aware already, typically is not going to work. I really recommend that you guys see this interview with this sheriff. see about reposting it on my YouTube account. And if I can get it up there, I will give you guys a link to my YouTube channel next week. I yield.
Please. Can you give us your YouTube channel?
Yeah, I was going to say, will you post that in the, sorry to interrupt, will you post that in the Marshall's chat so we can...
I already did post it in the Marshall's chat, and my YouTube channel is Colorado Prepper.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, the first time I was pulled over by the de facto after I took my oath of office. When the officer detained me, I was annoyed to detain me in an area where I couldn't get cell phone reception. And at first I said, well, I need to move to an area where I've got reception. And he of course objected to that. And when he asked for driver's license, proof of insurance, the whole 9 yards, I said, excuse me, but where is the injured party? And he kind of did a step back, like, what? And I said, where is the injured party? And he kind of drew a blank, and I said, well, look, in order for a crime to have been committed, there has to be an injured party, and you have detained me. Therefore, a crime must have been committed, and I'm looking for the injured party. Is basically where I was going with the whole thing. And I went into the whole thing with him about, as a Continental Marshal, I am actually the enforcer of law, whereas you are the enforcer of codes and statutes for a corporation, and yet you took an oath to hold up the Constitution. And we had a good exchange. In the short of all of it, I have it videotaped or audio taped, really not videotaped. But I've got the audio of the encounter, and it ended up being a good one. He agreed to give mutual respect and sent me on my way. I never did give him the documents that he asked for. I did give him my oath of office, though, and he freaked out. And I guess the point is that, in learning the difference between the statutes and codes and the laws, and learning the private versus the public, and correcting your status and learning to stand on it, which you need to. We've got to carry certain things with us so that we're prepared to interact with the de facto at any given time. And we have to know how we're going to deal with them before we walk out the door and step into, your conveyance and travel. You need to be prepared, especially if you're going to stand up for your rights and you're not licensing or contracting any longer with them. Then you better get something in place, whether it's that international license that MJ talked about, or the one through the passport, through the DS-11, which is what I'm doing, or credentials. Have something. Learn to protect yourself.
May I?
Please.
This is Santa Claus in Cincinnati. I don't
Santa
know
Claus.
Okay. Did you have any discussion earlier on your call about what's happening in Denver there with the guys there?
I have no new updates from here. Maybe someone else on the call has an update.
Well, I just, I wasn't. I just wondered if, because I got in late, and I just wondered if you had any discussed. So apparently you didn't really. Well,
Santa
okay,
Claus,
yeah.
You don't have anything new other than the word that Dave bonded out was the only thing we brought up on this call.
Yeah.
And I think he's under a gag order.
Doubtless, that's a condition.
Yeah. What do you suppose they did wrong, criminally?
Oh, nothing criminally. What they did was lawful. What they did wrong was, in their eyes, and the people that are going after them, was the commercial liens.
Well, I mean, it's like if for some reason somebody's mugging somebody, and you come along and stop the mugging and take the mugger into custody, then the mugger can bring criminal charges against you for stopping his crime.
Yeah, you're interfering with commerce. That's a chargeable offense.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Especially if he claims this is the way I make my living. I'm not a part-time criminal. I'm a full-time criminal.
There you go.
Yeah.
Part of doing the status correction when we were going through the Xing the Matrix series, which I thought were very, very good. I learned a great deal from those. Is that you're learning, or you're becoming invisible to the de facto, okay? Because sometimes protecting yourself, you need more than just the protection. You need like an invisible shield. Is something that makes you invisible. And I'm bringing that up because something that Judge Mickey did has started to take that effect, in that the post office can no longer find her address after 18 years. Multiple places are having a hard time locating her address. She hasn't gone anywhere. Her address is the same. It's been the same for 18 years. But suddenly there seems to be a little bit of an issue there. And I don't think it's an issue at all. I think it's part of becoming invisible. And furthermore, she was supposed to have a bench warrant out for her arrest, and she was pulled over by the de facto, and she did give them her authenticated birth certificate, and then I think it was her passport card, which has her Julian, or what was it? She gave them something else. Has it
Schubert, I am heading home tomorrow and will be in and out of cell phone service.
Okay. Well, she's had an experience anyway. She's had an effect, is what I'm trying to say, where her invisibility is becoming apparent. How's that? She's not visible. She's not so visible. She may not be visible at all at this point. We don't know for sure. But certain things are pointing towards she's not visible. We don't know what that is that exactly. She thinks it might be the her interaction with the Treasury.
If I may.
Please.
Sorry, I just wanted to apologize. This is Captain Kevin. I thought I was muted when I was sending out that text.
Yeah.
No problem.
Also, just to give you a note, Schubert and I are discussing it I think we're going to go ahead and put these up on YouTube.
Oh, good. Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing, so I think it'd be very, very good. What I came up with for, let me go to my notes here, for things that I thought would be good to cover is the status correction and steps that you can take to do that, comprehending contracts and consent, which in some ways are one and the same. 1099 process is very good, I think. And, that has to do with not just 1099s, but in general, we're looking to zero out accounts based on the bankruptcy of 1933. And then spiritual aspect of things, UCC, and what that means. And that's kind of what I have. Anybody want to comment, add to anything? I yield.
If I may.
Please.
This is Captain Kevin again. I'm really excited about this passport thing. Hopefully we can get some more discussion time in about that. I think we're going to go ahead and file our passport form as soon as possible. I yield.
Thank you. I think that's definitely in order, personally, myself. And I also would say that, okay, what happened to me, I did the passport application. That's in number 7 of the Exiting the Matrix series with examples. So you can actually download it and see exactly how to fill it out. I did fill it out correctly. I know I did. And for some reason, they put me back into United States citizen category. I contacted them when I got my card and my book and said, I think you made a mistake. And they said that I needed to send them something telling them why I was not a U.S. citizen. And I haven't done that part yet. I haven't gone back and corrected it, but it's on my agenda this week. So I do intend to get the corrected one back. And I've heard from others that it's not unusual, actually, to be met with resistance and have to go back again and deal with them. So should be fairly easy to go back in and take care of that. You know, we do have the law on our side. And that's something that we all need to remember. The laws are there. The remedy is there. But we have to pursue that remedy. And it's an administrative process. And so cover your tracks there, too, as you're going through your steps. And make sure you always preserve your rights, known or unknown. Okay? So without prejudice, UCC 1-308 will do just fine. Or under duress, if nothing else. I yield. Anyone else have any questions, comments? We'll be going through status correction, including the DS-11 form, including multiple other things, authenticating your birth certificate, etc. We'll be going through the comprehension of contracts and consent and how that works with the de facto, the 1099 process, the spiritual aspect of all of this, and, of course, last but not least, your UCC filings. Are they important? Are they not? What do you put in them? I think we can get through all of that material over a few weeks. And so I really look forward to doing this with you guys and learning from everybody as well. I've learned so much tonight. Thank you, everybody that has joined in.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So if nobody else has anything else, I think we can call it a night. Marshall Sherbert, thank you so much for setting this whole thing up and for moderating the call and jumping in when you've been asked to. And everyone who has joined in, thank you so much. I really look forward to these classes or these calls going forward and getting to know everybody on a more personal level and helping each other as we move forward in correcting things and setting the record straight. How's that?
Thanks for doing the call.
All right, everybody. Good night, and we'll see you back here tomorrow, or not tomorrow, next Monday in a week. And we'll do it again here, and we'll get some good people on the line to chime in. And if anybody has suggestions, comments, anything throughout the week, please feel free to post in the Continental Marshals Signal or the We the People on Signal. Or, of course, you're more than welcome to email me anytime, and I will do my best to get through all emails and review all material. Until next week, thank you all, and good night.